Thank you, Chair, and also thank IDSA for your kind invitation for me to attend this event, important event. I've been to the conference before. I learned a lot, and I have already learned a lot since I came. I just appreciate your criticism and the comments on my paper. I have apologized that I have written the longest paper for the conference as always. Because it's long, it becomes tedious, so I will not talk about it, I will not read it. I will do something else, that is to clarify some misperceptions of certain concepts of China's maritime strategies and policies. First of all, I'd like to mention or analyze. Sorry, before that, I have to say my title is Meeting the Challenge, not China's Perspective. What I said in my paper was not China's perspective. It was my perspective or my interpretation of China's perspective. There is a huge difference. China's perspective cannot be wrong, but my interpretation can be wrong. Therefore, do not take it really as China's perspective. It's basically my view. And in the paper, you can also see some of my critical comments on some of aspects of policies of Beijing as well. The first point I'd like to deal with is the non-dotted line. Firstly, the non-dotted line was not PRC creation. It was her inheritance from the previous government. The non-dotted line was put on the map in 1947-48 by the ROC government for exactly reason or legal base for it. I think we have representative from Taiwan today. They can give better explanation about that. So that is not my job. My purpose is in writing my paper, the purpose is really to deal with this reality that the non-dotted lines are there, and the disputes can be attributable to the non-dotted line, but not just solely by the non-dotted line by itself. So we have to seek ways to manage the conflicts that has been associated with non-dotted line. So that is our purpose, to find a way of crisis prevention and crisis management. And then another point is that the non-dotted line was 35 years older than the enclave. That means that creates a lot of complexity when we apply the enclave onto the resolution, associated with non-dotted line. So how a law be applied to deal with a case 35 years older than it? That is something I'm not legal expert. I don't know. I don't have the answer to it. But what I'm trying to say, just to apply enclave, which is controversial enough. That is one of the reasons why the United States never wanted to join. Then it creates probably more confusion and problems by itself. Thirdly, it's a dotted line. It's not solid line, which speaks a lot the nature of the dotted line. I'll tell you a story. In 1992, in the UN General Assembly, Jiang Zemin made appointment to meet Suharto to thank him for restoring the bilateral diplomatic relationship, especially Indonesian support in the UN human rights sessions to support China's case. In the process of meeting and the dialogue, Suharto suddenly raised this question: one of your line, the non-dot line, got into my EEZ. They asked Jiang Zemin to explain. Jiang Zemin explained right there without any hesitation that the non-dotted line covers only the islands and its adjacent waters, which really mean the 12 nautical miles surrounding the islands. Suharto said, could you have it put down in a formal diplomatic document? Jiang Zemin said no problem. So in 1993, China signed formal diplomatic note to Jakarta to confirm what Jiang Zemin said to Suharto. In 1995 and 1996, Chinese Foreign Minister Chen Jishen made repeated trips to ASEAN of 6, every capital, and gave the formal explanation what is covered by the 9 dotted line, and the Chinese foreign spokesman made it hundreds times what is about. So the problem is really with the media distortion and some political distortion of the 9 dotted line by deliberately saying it covers all the waters in the area. So that is true. That is truly distorted view, and it doesn't reflect any truth and fact. I think recently American government put more pressure on China to clarify the 9 dotted line. Now, the issue here is not to force China to clarify what it covers. It asks Chinese to clarify on what legal basis, on the basis of SLOC, UNSLOC, that the 9 dotted line was still there. So that would be, for example, as far as Chinese are concerned, that would be a kind of zero-sum game. If you force the Chinese to remove the lines, that will not help what we call the dispute control or dispute management. It would only escalate the tension because of the fact the 9 dotted line are already there. Then my next point is about EEZ. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not expert. I think Dr. Ran is expert on this. Among all the islands in the Spratleys, from the Chinese perspective, probably only one island that is entitled to EEZ, that is Taiping Island, under occupation of the Taiwanese at the moment. All other islands are not entitled to the EEZ claim. So that is also says a lot of things. As far as China is concerned, it is only claimant that has not promulgated maritime boundary line and the boundary points around the Spratleys. It actually announced the boundary baseline and the points over the Paracel Island area, but not the Spratley area. So I think Dr. Ran had a point in her paper that China launched or submit the EZ claim on the Spratleys. I will check on that, because from my point of view, how could you submit a EZ claim without even a boundary baseline or points announced? And more complicated, that island is under the occupation of Taiwan, not under the occupation of China. Therefore, it is more complicated if you announce a EZ on that part of the thing. That creates more confusions. So I don't think, I will check whether it is actually, what your point is in Paris Island area or in, let's say, Hainan provincial area rather than Spratley area. The third one is so-called the multilateralism or bilateralism. That also generates a lot of political distortions. Now, multilateralism or bilateralism in dealing with this dispute actually address two entirely different issues. Multilateralism is mainly for crisis management or territorial dispute control. As it is indicated by DOC or COC. Now it is the claimants with help of outside world to work out some documents, or even better, the legal code of conduct, so nobody would push envelope beyond certain point to generate hidden tension. China is very active in participating in this multilateral process. It was active in participating the negotiation of DOC, and it is currently active in negotiating with ASEAN countries with COC. So it is basically for political sides the distortion that China prefer bilateralism. So it is a big country, so it can intimidate smaller countries in the bilateral setting. So that is not the, and it is against the kind of multilateralism in the process of resolving the problem. So let's come back. What is the bilateralism is about? It's about sovereignty resolution. Can you imagine that multiple disputes can be resolved collectively? I mean, that is extremely difficult. I wouldn't say it is impossible. So it is a lot easier for countries involved in the disputes to sit down and negotiate, like China and Vietnam, to resolve the land border disputes and Beibu Shore disputes, or like the negotiation between China and Burma, between China and Pakistan, China and Mongolia, China and Russia. So you see, it is a political myth to talk about a bigger country using the platform bilateralism for the gains. Now, if you look at the map, I think Taiwanese representatives here have very keen, impression that the map of China in 1949 was the smallest map that China have had in 300 years. And in the negotiation between China and Burma, China and Pakistan, China and Mongolia, China is a bigger country. It made more losses in terms of the size of the territories it gave it up. So that doesn't make sense. It is not a kind of reality. But one of my friends who argue for this told me it was political syllable, and it served a lot of political purposes. Then the bilateralism is a policy, for example, probably policy of preference as far as Beijing is concerned, but as I mentioned earlier, sovereignty resolution is impossible. So bilateralism becomes a kind of policy of preference but no substance. Eventually we have to do it in a multilateral way first, to work out mechanism of crisis management first. Then we move beyond this and to deal with the conflict we call sovereignty resolution at a later stage. So at this moment, bilateralism is something very abstract. It's not kind of reality we have to deal with. Thirdly, now as far as I think the crisis management or crisis prevention focus is concerned, I think that is our urgent task. I think several papers in this panel mention it as well. I think I'm the only person, I don't know I'm right or not, I'm the only person who have set the foot on one of the Spratly Islands physically and personally. When I sat on the rock and look around, I ask myself this question. Now, if those rocks are worth defending, or worth sabotaging strategic relationship between China and the United States and others. However, as several papers also mentioned in this panel, this is a very sensitive issue. It's linked to domestic politics. As ROC put the 9 dotted line there, it was political responsibility for Beijing to defend it. So that's a reality. Nobody can escape now anymore. The third one is so-called freedom of navigation, especially in the South China Sea. Here, it is erroneous, actually, to claim so-called I'm sorry, Dr. Ran, to say that territorial disputes in the South China Sea could impede freedom of navigation. I think that is not true. It is not true that, I'm grateful if you can remind me of a single case that involved China, that China does something to impede freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, especially in the disputed area. There is none. I can't remember anything. like that. What is the incident of EP3 or USS Impeccable? Here we have to distinguish what is South China Sea. This concept has been deliberately manipulated by media people or by, unobjective scholars or strategists. When we talk about South China Sea, it consists of three parts. One is purely, Chinese part with no dispute. We call the Hainan Island part. Then there is a part we call the parcel part that has a dispute between China and Vietnam. Then it is Spratly part of the disputed area. So what EP3 and USS Impeccable incident happened in undisputed area in the Hainan Island. The American spy planes came to pick up military signals. I think for that, it is not a matter of freedom of navigation. No, as far as China is concerned, it is a war without smoke. It is electronic warfare. So when this happened, I think in March 2010, in the discussion, in the dialogue between senior Chinese officials and American officials, Dai Bingguo mentioned to Chief Bader and Deputy State of Department, South China Sea is China's core national interests. It referred to U.S. spy activities close to Chinese strategic nuclear submarine base near in the Hainan Island. It has nothing to do with the Spratly, with the Paracel Island disputes at all. So when the newspaper covered this story, they deliberately unspecified what the Chinese referred to, and it mentioned it as China said South China Sea is China's core national interest. For innocent people sitting in front of me, you would immediately think about Spratly dispute, right? So that is the kind of the distortion we are talking about, the misconception. Sometimes it's deliberately made. Then, how about the USS Impeccable? It is not about freedom of navigation. It is within about 50 kilometers of Chinese maritime border. It is well within the Chinese EEZ, which under no dispute. And you all know USS Impeccable has a very powerful, phase range sonar system that has a 100 meters long, the line. When it is on, it would generate tremendous harm to the marine life in the EEZ. So that was naturally, it was naturally the Chinese, we call the civilian, maritime civilian ships to come to stop this kind of operation. By the way, it is not Chinese Navy ship at all. Then, how about EP3? EP3 came at the time when China's South Sea fleet were conducting intensive military drills in the Hainan Island EEZ area under no dispute. They pick up the signals. So the Chinese, try to intercept it because they believe this is about national military security, national security issue, rather the freedom of navigation issue. Then finally, the USS Coppens incident. We have carrier commanders probably in this room. You all know carrier battle group have 3 circles of defense lines. When USS Coppens broke into the first line, Chinese capital Commander Zhang Zheng telephoned the U.S. commander about the Chinese doing exercises in the area and asked the U.S. captain to stop. The U.S. captain ignored the telephone conversation and continued to move to break the second line and come to the core of the carrier proper within 5 kilometers of the carrier. So let me ask you, some of you maybe naval commanders, what would you, respond to such an event? Or let's say if China got into the Indian Ocean, your ports and got into the area where your carrier battle groups are doing exercises 5 kilometers within the carrier, what Indian commanders would do. So that all these kind of things, they are not actually accurately or objectively, conveyed or discussed. So that would be the major, problem when we try to, establish workable, logical, acceptable governance, regimes in this part of, area. I want to talk about some air defense identification zone, but I don't have time. So I have lengthy discussion in my paper. It's a military kind of a discussion or analysis of the maritime governance model, although I'm more comfortable with the military aspect than governance aspect. Oh, thank you.